Hi again then guys, and welcome to another Special Projects Replica build on Gran Turismo 6, and this build is actually a requested tune, or a suggested tune, for the Lotus Exige GT3 race car. Now of course we don't have the Exige on the game to turn into a race car in the first place, so the nearest thing we can get to it is to use the premium 111R Elise. Now you could use the newer Elise, which does have a hardtop conversion, but technically that is the wrong generation of car, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. Now we have made some pretty notable visual changes to the car, so we'll run through those first of all: paint, bodywork, rims, all that kind of stuff. Then we'll run through, of course, the mechanical side of things, and finally take it out to Silverstone to see what it can do. Now, excluding the obvious addition of a hardtop, this car's got the rest of the visual aspect of this Exige GT3 down pretty well. It's got a good body kit, it's got a good wing, even the rims are pretty close. Now, as far as body kits go, I would recommend the Type B. It gives you the much more extreme chin splitter, side skirts, all that kind of good stuff. It's a shame that it doesn't have a flat floor. You do, of course, have that kind of built-in diffuser already, but it would have been cool to give it a full-on flat floor conversion. That being said, it already has a huge amount of grip. As far as the rear wing, I would recommend a custom wing just to get it to be the right proportions. And for the exact parts that I've used, I've gone for the Type E wing, as you can see, the winglets, or the wing stays, as it says there. For the wing itself, I've gone for the Type C. That's a flat top wing with a slight curve to it, as you can see. And as far as the winglets on the end, I've gone for Type C, which is quite a minimalist design. And then as far as size, I've gone for 0 on width, which is, funnily enough, as wide as it can be. And for height, I've lowered it to -4, just to get it about the right height compared to the real machine. As far as the rims, we've left them in the standard size, and the actual car has 5 spokes, quite a chunky 5-spoke design. So the 5 spokes that I've gone for are these GT AB05s, which actually look pretty close to the rims on the real model. As far as additional meters, you definitely could fit them, or I believe you can fit them anyway. I haven't opted to, but the reason why I haven't is because it's so much down to personal preference. Some people like to have a turbo gauge or a rev gauge or fuel or whatever, so I leave that down to you. As far as the paint colour itself, there are a couple of different colour options that you could go for. I'm replicating more the car that you can see in the thumbnail, so a darker colour. I've gone for ebony black for this particular body colour, and that comes from the Jaguar S-Type. As I've mentioned before, it's my most used black. It's a very dark but also deep black. It doesn't really have much of a shine to it. And I've also gone for that colour for the brakes as well, and of course also for the custom wing. As far as the rims though, I have also gone for a solid colour, but it's, as many of you guys will recognise, the glitched black, which for those who don't know comes from the Peugeot Vision GT car. It comes from a number of colours with that vehicle. I got it from red number 764 from that car. It's right at the bottom of the list here, and as you can see, it makes the rims literally as black as you can possibly get on the game. So that's it for the visuals, and of course, as you can see, we've also fitted the race plates as well, but with no number. You could fit one if you want to, of course, and that's it. That's all you need to do for the visuals. So, now let's cover the mechanical side of things. Now, as far as the tune on this car goes, we are running a couple of numbers which are accurate to the real vehicle, such as the power and weight, 285 horsepower, 750 kilos, but we have made some educated guesses and also just some replacement settings for when we don't know what the real car would have been running, such as for suspension or differential. Now, you may be able to find those things, such as the gearbox settings. I personally wasn't able to, but if you do know what they are, feel free, of course, to slap those down in the comments for others to benefit from. Now, racing hards are kind of overkill on a road car, but the main reason why I've done that is for the same reason that I have with a couple of other race car inspired builds or replicas, and that is for that authentic look and feel. At the end of the day, you want the car to handle like it's on rails, and you want it to look the part. So I've gone for racing hards for that reason. Race brakes as well, obviously. As far as suspension, we've got the ride height as low as possible, front and rear. Springs we've increased quite a bit to 675 and 1125. The dampers to 5, anti-roll to 4. We've got 1 degree of camber, and obviously I don't usually use camber on my builds. The main reason why I have done so for this one is a similar reason to a couple of others recently, and that is for the visual authenticity, if you will. The real car has a little bit of stance to it. That's the reason why I've gone for that. You can run it with zero camber though if you want to. We've also got neutral toe. We'll come back to the gearbox in just a second. For the diff, I'm using settings which you've probably seen me use before quite a few times. It's one of my preferred setups. Halfway on initial torque, and the lowest settings on both acceleration and braking. But of course, feel free to change those completely if you already know what works better for you, or if you just fancy trying something different, basically. As far as the clutch and flywheel, I've gone for the twin plate, not the triple plate. And the main reason for that is because you're not dealing with a huge amount of power and torque. So it's not entirely necessary to have the triple plate. You could if you want to. I mean, it's not going to harm the car to do that. As far as power, we do have an oil change, so of course you need to bear that in mind. And there are a couple of different ways to get around to that power. You don't necessarily have to fit the things that I have. So, for instance, mid-range turbo, you could change to low range or high range. It's down to you. I've gone for the Stage 3 engine tune, the sports computer, sports exhaust, standard manifold with a sports cat, intake and mid-range turbo. One of the reasons why I went for the mid-range is, well, there's two reasons, kind of. One, it gives you better torque. And secondly, because this isn't a top-end car. Even if you wanted to use it as a top-end car, it just doesn't offer that with the amount of power that you're running, the downforce, all that kind of stuff. So it's better to have a mid-range sometimes, such as on technical circuits with cars that are better around corners, rather than in a straight line. And this is pretty much a definitive example of that. It's all about the cornering. So you could go for high range or low range if you want to, but again, it's down to personal preference. As far as weight, you definitely want the full weight loss package, and thankfully that brings us exactly to the real weight of the actual car, which is very fortunate for a build when it does that. Downforce, I'm running the maximum, which still isn't that high unfortunately, but again, there's nothing we can do about that. And finally, for the gearbox, as I said, I wasn't able to find what those settings were, so I gave it a kind of close ratio setup, but with a bit of top-end performance as well for when you do need it. So you can get about 150, 160 out of it. We've got an auto setting of 180, then individual gears of 3.3, 2250, 1675, 1325, 1075 and 900 with that final drive of 4. And of course, with the final drive in particular, you can raise or lower it if you do need a little bit more leeway with the gears, or alternately, if you want to get through them quicker. So it's all down to you. And as you can see, it does round off very nicely to 525 pp. So of course, all that remains is to take it out on a track. Now I have to say, when I built this car, I didn't actually realistically expect it to be incredible. Of course, you can make similar setups to a race car, but at the end of the day, there are relatively few road cars which genuinely feel like a race car when you tune them. And I have to say, this is one of them. The way this car corners is incredible. It feels like it has a flat floor. It's that good. Or at least in my opinion, it's that good. It's incredible in terms of grip levels. Obviously the racing hard tyres help with that, but even on lower grade tyres, it's still going to be a fantastic car for, say, online racing on technical and tight circuits, of course, and also potentially for seasonals as well. So if you do decide to use this tune, obviously I hope you find it fun, and there are plenty more like this to check out on the channel. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.